100%. So we can now move off to college football, which, by the way, huge news, George. James Franklin, they ponied up. They found the money to buy out James Franklin. Can you? I mean, this was. I was considering we were going to do an emergency podcast after it happened, but we just didn't have time. It happened in the middle of the Sunday slate of NFL games, so we couldn't do it. But
it was like right at noon.
Yeah, James Franklin. That kind of just like, where did that come from? I know they lost 3 in a row.
Yeah, we know where it came from, but
we know where it came from for sure. But I think we both were surprised that it happened mid-season. I thought that James Franklin had enough. I thought Franklin had enough, gravitas towards the program to kind of let him honor and finish the season out. I did not think they had I did not think they would kind of fire him mid-season after a 3-game skid. I did not see that coming at all. I figured he's been there long enough. He's built the program. They would maybe fire him at the end of the year and figure out what happens there. Because honestly, George, and the reason why I'm so surprised about it, because I mentioned on the podcast last week, who is actually leaving their current job for Penn State? With the way that the rules are,
that's an upgrade. That's
of course I get that, but with the way that the rules are in this era, you can't really go out and get a guy who's in the playoff, coaching the playoff, because that means the window would be closed by the time that you would miss the recruiting hours and all that other stuff. So you can't get anyone that's going to be coaching the playoff. Like no one's leaving in the middle of the playoff to go coach Penn State. I would not imagine. So it'd have to be somebody else. Would they hire a coordinator? We'll get into that. But overall, what were your thoughts on the actual firing of James Franklin coming mid-season?
Yeah. And my point kind of there was that I was saying no one's leaving. What's it called? No one's leaving taking a worse job. None of those playoff guys are going to leave to thinking, and the Cignetti stuff is interesting, but, I'm sure we'll get into that. But, we talked about kind of came out of nowhere. And to an extent, yes, based on, the track record that James Franklin has. And, everyone loves James Franklin. Everyone that's played for him, everyone that interacts with him, he's a really good guy. He bleeds Penn State. He loves Penn State. He's from Pennsylvania. It's all these things that are great about James Franklin. But Pat, I think it's Pat Kraft is the guy's name, is the athletic director. Yep. He said it on the podium immediately. He said, this wasn't a decision that was made yesterday. It wasn't a decision that was made, in one day. And it wasn't even made this season. This is something they've been thinking about really for the almost his entire tenure here, right? The story on James Franklin has kind of always been he can't win the big one, and it's unfortunate because it's hard to say you can't win the big one. It's always kind of like he hasn't won the big one. Yeah. But here we are now, and it kind of just comes down to he never did win the big one, right? But I think that, like you said, it seems a bit early to me. I think it's an expensive buyout. I think he's a guy that consistently recruits well, that has a good eye for talent, and he's got good coordinators around him, and he's built a good working thing in their building. But I also recognize that Penn State means business, and they put a lot of money into this program, and they want to win those. For a long time they've been the third tier program, whether that was to Michigan and Ohio State, now it's Oregon and Ohio State. They've kind of always been that third tier program in the Big Ten, and they've really never really been close. The games have been close, but
last year was the closest. Yeah, last year was
the closest, and it felt like this year, James Franklin said it going in. This is the most talented roster he thinks he's had. He's got full faith. He's got this great running back tandem coming back that really has been underperforming so far. And so it's tough, but when you lost to UCLA, I was like, wow, here we are. We've kind of gone off the road. Anything could happen here. Yeah. I didn't think that meant they're going to lose to Northwestern at home, and it was ugly, and it was a spot where obviously Drew Aller takes that season-ending injury, and you pray for him, you feel terrible for him.
It's how it's ended.
With no eligibility left, it's really unfortunate for him. But from the Penn State perspective, I get it. We talked about it before going on air. To me, it kind of reminded me of Mark Richt at Georgia a little bit, where he was there for about 15 years. And he was good. He was good. He wasn't great. He was not Alabama, obviously, with Saban there. There was a Florida dynasty running there, during his time. And there was a lot of programs that kind of rose and fell during his time at Georgia, where Georgia was, a solid 8-9 wins, but they weren't competing for that national championship. And, obviously they weren't holding a candle to Alabama. And they fired Mark Richt. And at the time there was some pushback there. And they felt they could do better. And they got a little risky, and they went out and got a Saban coordinator in Kirby Smart, who has done nothing but absolutely turn Georgia into probably the best program over the last 5-10 years in college football.
Sure.
I understand the perspective. You kind of want that. That's the vibe you want to bring in. But like you said a second ago, who's leaving their program to come to Penn State? I mean, I heard Marcus Freeman's name a lot. I don't think I'm leaving Notre Dame, especially coming off a national title appearance. We've heard, obviously the big names are going to be yelled. Cignetti's name I've heard a lot. I think Indiana gets a lot of disrespect. I think the pockets of Indiana are a lot deeper than people think. And, people say, Penn State's going to just blow him out of the water with a huge offer. He just signed an extension. I'm sure they're happy to extend him again based on the way the season looks so far. And I just, like you said, like Matt Rule is a guy he loves Pat Kraft, and he loves Penn State. He met his wife at Penn State. He went to Penn State. And so it would make a lot of sense to bring Matt Rule in. But to me,
George, that's
it's a downgrade.
Thing.
I'd argue it's a downgrade to go from James Franklin to Matt Rule. Like
George,
it's
what is the book on James Franklin? He can't win the big game, right? Matt Rule, it's even worse if you look at the numbers. Matt Rule has not won a big college football has not won a big college football game.
Well, we don't know about CFB 25.
I don't know about CFB 25, but Matt Rule has struggled in big games his entire coaching career. Here's the thing. Matt Rule is a builder. We saw him build Temple. We saw him turn around Baylor. He's trying to turn around Nebraska. He's a program builder. Penn State is built. They need someone who can make it a champion. James Franklin struggled to win the big game. Matt Rule even more so. I believe he has lost 27. I believe he's 1-27, and he has not beat a ranked opponent.
It's just the exact same story. It's the exact same
Matt
story.
Rule struggles against ranked teams, basically.
Yeah. And to me, it's if you're getting ready to go shell out $50 million for that guy to not coach here, are you going to shell out another whatever it is, 50, 60, 70 million to bring him and his staff over to do the probably be worse? If I'm being honest, it's really hard to do what James Franklin did.
That's what I'm saying.
He came into a program that was just riddled with controversy and mess and scandal and the Sandusky trash and all that garbage. And he went day one. He said, "I care about Penn State. I care about the people, and I care about the alumni base." And he showed it. And I don't mean to just pump up his tires here. I thought the firing was understandable from the Penn State perspective, but like you said, you have to recognize the position you're in and recognize kind of what your options are going to be after James Franklin, and it's pretty thin. And I think that they're gonna send off. I'm sure they're gonna call Dan Lanning and Nick Saban and all these guys and whoever, but those guys aren't coming. Penn State isn't. It's not to the level, in my opinion, yet that a Notre Dame or that one of those, even Oregon for sure. The way that Oregon is funded, I don't think that they even hold a candle, especially considering Oregon just went in there and dominated. So to me, the timing felt weird. I thought that you got to give them another year. And just kind of with the way college football is these days, we're kind of seeing it with Clemson. Very similar spot where Clemson's 3-3, thinking that they're going to be the best team they've had in 5+ years. And Dabo Swinney's in a very similar spot to James Franklin. Obviously, he's been here a little longer. He's got that same success. He's got a lot more success on a national level. He's got those 2 rings. But it's not been a long time for Dabo. But you got to recognize where you're building a program and that you can if you have a bad year, you can bounce back right away. If you supplement right in the portal and you build your team the right way, you don't have to be a 6-loss team 2 years in a row. You can have a bad year and then just get right better. And I think that's what James Franklin was gonna do. But we'll just never know at this point. And Penn State, welcome to the abyss of the college football coaching sector.
We'll never know. I was going to say, I don't know if the grass is greener after James Franklin. I knew the buyout was going to be a large. I did not think they'd be able to pony up and get the buyout there.
$50 million.
And I don't disagree with going in a different direction. So I think we both said after they lost to UCLA, this might be a time for a new voice in Happy Valley. The problem is how do you replace James Franklin and definitively get better? I mean, the only name that I believe you definitively get better is if you bring in Curt Cignetti. And I don't know if he's leaving Indiana. We teased it last week on the podcast. Would he leave Indiana for Penn State? Maybe. It's a maybe. But the other options, Matt Rule, I'm sorry. It's a downgrade. Absolutely. At that point, you might as well just stick with James Franklin and win 9-10 games every year because
you have to pay twice now that you fired him.
You have to pay twice now, exactly. So it's like Matt Rule has had problems winning big games. He has not beat a ranked opponent in I believe a decade. So it's the same thing with James Franklin. He's 1-18 in the last. It's the same exact issue. They both have the same issue. Penn State fans have been hearing for the last 10 years they can't win the big game. So I don't think Penn State fans would be very receptive to a hire of Matt Rule, who also struggles to win a big game. I floated the idea. I mean, I heard it also on the social media world, but the idea was floated that maybe Fran Brown from Syracuse, who is a recruiting hub, I believe that he would really dominate that Northeastern recruiting cycle. He's obviously doing it in Syracuse right now. He's led the number 1 offense back-to-back years, and then of course he lost his quarterback this year. Not his fault, but maybe if you go that route. Other than that, I mean, it's like, would you go for a guy that's not been a head coach yet, and you do the Georgia mold where you hire a coordinator under Saban and you kind of hope that maybe it works and that you turn into Georgia? Maybe, but who's out there? I mean, they're probably going to interview Brian Hartline.
Cignetti was that guy before.
Right, of course, yeah. But Brian Hartline is a hot name at Ohio State, the offensive coordinator there. They've already gone with a Ohio State coordinator and Jim Knowles on the staff. So I don't know. I mean, they're going to interview a bunch of guys. They're probably going to call Urban Meyer. They're going to call these guys. I don't know if any of these guys are actually going to come. That's what I'm saying. I don't know who's actually leaving for Penn State. I mean, we griped about this off air. I don't know who would actually come in and save this job. I really don't know. So right now they're kind of in limbo. I mean, right now, okay, yeah, they fired James Franklin, but what's next? The interim guy that they gave, I don't know who his name is, but he's not going to be the head coach after the year. Maybe they win 7-8 games and they like him, but he's not going to be they're not removing the interim tag for whoever this is. They're going to have to pony up and find somebody, and I don't know who it's going to be that's going to save this program.
Yeah, it feels like it's either going to be really expensive or really underwhelming, right? And
Right.
even if it is expensive, you're like just like I think Marcus Freeman, if he were to do it, would
I just don't see
probably
it.
be. I mean, is it even an upgrade? And I think Marcus Freeman's great.
By the way,
But Marcus Freeman's signature win is against James Franklin.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So Penn State was a play away from the national title last year. They lost Notre Dame. What could Marcus Freeman do at Penn State that he can't already do at Notre Dame? Like, there's nothing. What would we be leaving for? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and they love him.
I agree. It's just tough because you're firing a guy, like you said, that was one play away from the national championship. And I'm not a huge James Franklin guy. I'm not here to say I am. I'm not trying to retroactively go back and vouch for him.
Not either. No,
but, it's just timing wise and money wise and all of these factors that are playing into it, just especially considering how good Indiana is and considering that they're going to be in the playoff and you're not going to get them if you do get Cignetti until like January 25th or whatever. Right. So to me, it's just timing wise, it's brutal. And again, it's like you're going to have to go back to your sponsors and back to your donors and be like, hey, we need more money. We need more money, not just 100%. For the coach, but for his staff that he's going to bring and for all the recruits he's going to need to bring in. And he's rebuilding the program, and I'm sure they're going to lose a ton of guys. The decommitment wave has already kind of started. So Penn State, like I said, they're in limbo right now. They're in a really, really tough spot where, if it is the Georgia scenario, like with Kirby, then awesome. But I just don't see that candidate right now. I'd like Manny Diaz. He's old DC. He's a guy he's been successful at Penn State, but it just feels like a bit of a guy where this is a big job. This is a Power 5. This is like one of those. I wouldn't call him a blue blood, but this is one of those programs that you think about when you think about elite college football, and that's because of James Franklin. So it's a bit of a tough spot.
We were dogging Franklin, but he did build this program in for sure. I mean, Will Stein's another guy at Oregon. They might look for him as another hotshot coordinator. But we can kind of segue right into Oregon, Indiana. We were talking about Cignetti, talking about Lanning, talking about Will Stein. So Oregon, Indiana was the big game. That was College Game Day this week. Oregon, Indiana, 3:30 slate up in Eugene. Indiana goes in there as a big underdog, and they win convincingly almost. I mean, it was a 10-point win. It was a 10-point win, and it could have been honestly more. The pick six is really what got Oregon back in the game. But Indiana from start to finish was the better team. And I think, I don't know about you, I was fairly surprised by that. I think that winning at Oregon is already daunting enough. In Indiana last year, their only game that they played against a good team was Ohio State. They got smoked in that game. And then they obviously got smoked against Notre Dame as well. But Indiana, to go on the road, they went on the road last year to Columbus and South Bend. They did not pass the test. This year, they passed it with flying colors. Fernando Mendoza coming out party. I mean, he was already great. We know that. But for a larger audience scale, people now know who Fernando Mendoza is. I mean, if you didn't watch him against Illinois, he put up 70 points. If you didn't watch him against Iowa, going into Kinnick and winning that game, if you didn't watch him at Cal last year, which I don't blame if you didn't watch him at Cal, but at Oregon, he kind of just did whatever he wanted. Back shoulder throws, throwing on the run. I mean, it was really impressive stuff. Indiana's got a real squad, George. Elijah Surratt, they got some dudes. I mean, what can you say about Indiana? Was it more Indiana? Or was it bad Oregon?
To me, this was all Indiana. I thought that, I've been kind of seeing this take a lot, but, it had the game been played with like neutral jerseys where you wouldn't be able to tell the logo, you'd think that Indiana was Oregon and Oregon was Indiana. They had them the whole way. And like you talked about, if it wasn't for that pick six, this game could have been really ugly. Could have been 30 plus to under 20 here. To me, it just felt like it wasn't just the offense. They made Dante Moore really uncomfortable all night. Yes. They forced him to have to pass the ball. They didn't really to run because they ran the ball pretty well with their running backs when they did, but they didn't really get to run it consistently because they were never ahead. They were never, running away with the game. And, we kind of saw all the things where you hope that Penn State would take advantage of it against Oregon, forcing Dante Moore to get uncomfortable, making him make a couple extra plays. They didn't, they made him do that when Penn State obviously didn't. So, I was more impressed by Indiana here. I thought, like you said, Fernando Mendoza, outside of pretty much one throw, was
one bad mistake.
One bad mistake. He was great. Roman Hemby, former Maryland Terrapin, always loved seeing him do well. He had the 2 touchdowns. Obviously, he was what they needed on the ground when they needed him to be. And like you said, Elijah Surratt. I mean, my goodness, that guy he's flying up draft boards as we speak right now.
He's an NFL guy. Yeah,
he's an NFL. He's a big time NFL guy. And I think the difference here was, last year that Indiana defense wasn't exactly potent, wasn't exactly scary. They had 6 different sacks this game. They played great. I think they forced a fumble. Like they were all over it today, or not today in this game. So it was all 3 phases. Special teams wasn't really a huge factor, but if it wasn't for that pick 6, like you said, this game could have gotten ugly. And Indiana, blind resume wise, Indiana is a team that if it was a different logo, they would probably be number 1 in the country.
100%. They have the best resumes by far so far. They beat a ranked at the time Illinois team, an Iowa team on the road.
Dominated
them, and then they dominated Oregon on the road in Eugene. Now, in any other logo, this would be number 1 team in the country. I have the numbers put up here. Elijah Surratt 8 for 121 and a touchdown.
Wow,
the game-winning touchdown as it is on the back shoulder throw. Roman Hemby had 95 total yards, 2 touchdowns. That'll play. Fernando Mendoza, 20 for 31, 215 through the air and a touchdown. I mean, he just did what he needed to do. And on the other side, Indiana's defense is for real. Like, this is a real unit now. I thought last year maybe it was a little bit of fool's gold. I've never seen Dante Moore look that, he was pressured all game. I mean,
he looked more comfortable in the whiteout than he did at home.
That's the crazy thing about it. You said it right there. I mean, Dante Moore did not look this uncomfortable since his time at UCLA when he had no offensive line. He was a true freshman, whatever. He was 21 to 34, 186, and had 2 picks, a QBR of 33. So Indiana just completely made him look like a different player. And I don't think it was necessarily like he was certainly off, but I think it was more Indiana making. Yeah,
the reason he was off. Yeah.
The reason he was off was Indiana's a real defense. I mean, we watched what he did to 100%. Penn State was really good. Yeah, but 100%. Penn State's off the rails. But Indiana, this was more Indiana's a real team now. And by the way, if you look at Indiana's schedule now, they play Penn State at the end of the year. I believe it's It's in Happy Valley. It's the game before the last game of the year, but they're probably gonna be favored now in that game. I mean that's gonna be
Penn State might be fighting for bowl eligibility in that game.
They might be 4 and 5. Yeah. By the way, if you told me before the year started that Indiana would have to go on the road at Oregon, they have to go on the road at Penn State, and they might be looking at 12-0 record, I would be like, you're crazy. They're not winning at Eugene and at Happy Valley. Well, right now they've already won at Eugene and they dominated that game. Yeah. Penn State has an interim head coach, and they might be, fighting for bowl eligibility. Indiana is going to be favored to go 12-0 again. Not again. They went 11-1 last year, but the rest of their schedule: Michigan State at home, UCLA at home. UCLA looks like a much better team. Maryland at Penn State, Wisconsin at home, and then Purdue. That's pretty minimal.
Those are 6 wins if you think about if you really.
They've gotten through their tough start. Their tough stretch was this 3-game stretch. Illinois, who was at the time was ranked number 9, at Iowa, and then at number 3 Oregon. That was their 3-game tough stretch, and they are 3-0 in that stretch. So credit to Indiana. Curt Cignetti, you can't say enough about what he's done in Indiana. I mean, they were like 2-10, I believe, 3-9 a couple of years ago. He takes over, and now they are a top 2 team in the country. It's just really incredible stuff. We'll shift to Alabama, Missouri was the other big game on Saturday. Yeah. Alabama knocks off another unbeaten Missouri. I don't know how this game was even close, George. I mean, Missouri really struggled to throw the ball vertically.
It was a game where it was close, and I thought Alabama played all right, and to me, Missouri just totally abandoned themselves. Kind of like we'll talk about with the Eagles here in a second. Yeah. But Ahmad Hardy only gets 12 rushes. He doesn't lead the team in rushing. He doesn't really get anything in the passing game either. So it was a close game the whole way, ends a 3-point game. So why isn't Ahmad Hardy getting the ball 25 times? And I'm not going to act like I know everything about Missouri's team. I haven't watched a ton of Missouri, but it's not hard to understand that Ahmad Hardy's the best player on that team.
The best player. Yeah.
Eli Drinkwitz will tell you, he's probably the first thing he said at the podium after the game is we didn't give him the ball enough. And, to me, you forced Bo Prabula to make probably more plays than he needed to make to win that game. In a game where Bama didn't put him away, they only scored 27. Missouri was at home. It was a noon game, right? So it was kind of one of those where it's like 11 a.m. local. I mean, it's kind of a shock spot where, hey, you got to get up and get ready. Yeah. And so you would think where it's a game where you want to just set the tone with your offensive line and Ahmad Hardy and get them the rock a bunch of times. But, to me, it's just they kind of faltered on their identity. And Alabama didn't really play their best game, and they were able to kind of just lean on them without Ryan Williams. And you just kind of do what they wanted to do. Caden Proctor once again gets an offensive touch. And it's just one of those things, again, where Alabama I thought Ty Simpson, I'm going to say this now. Ty Simpson, since that Florida State game, even probably including some of that Florida State game, has probably been the best quarterback in college football.
I agree with you.
There's some names that you can throw at me where I'll be like, okay, that's fair. And up until then, I would have thought that Bo Prabula and Dante Moore would have been names that I kind of put up there with him. But now those two, they both throw a pair of picks, and Ty Simpson continues to keep his head above water in an away game. And without his number one weapon, I'd say, in Ryan Williams. And he's just also flying up draft boards, make himself look better. So.
100%. Yeah, no, I thought Alabama was going to put them away a lot earlier. It looked like, and again, Bama's run defense has struggled this year. We saw Florida State run all over them. Georgia had obviously a lot of success running against Alabama. So you figured Missouri, okay, this is exactly what you want to hear. And they did a little bit early in the game. They were running the first drive. They went down and scored a touchdown against Bama, and they ran the ball the entire drive. It felt like. Yeah. Then Bama forced them to throw vertically, and they could not do it. I mean, Missouri just could not do it. Bo Prabula, when he was forced to throw the ball down the field, it just did not look good. And it was like they played Bama style of game. And again, if you're Missouri, you have to get the ball to Ahmad Hardy more than 12 times. That's kind of a given. But they were lucky to even be in this game. I think Bama failed a couple fourth downs earlier to kind of it was close, but then
they lingered around in there for a while.
They lingered around, but at the end of the day, Ty Simpson made the plays to put them away. I mean, that fourth down late that he made, that throw he made to I believe it was, I have it pulled up here, it was Latsier Brooks. That play he made to him, which was an unbelievable throw on 4th and 7. Where they were kind of in no man's land. Bama just missed a field goal. And then Drinkwitz fakes the punt for kind of no reason. I don't know why he did that. This defense is playing really good. And then he fakes the punt and he gives Bama field position right at the 40-yard line. They don't get anything there. They go 3 and out, but then it's like, well, we can't get another field goal. We just missed a long field goal. So we're going to go 4th and 7. We're going to go for it. And then that long throw by Ty Simpson to Brooks to kind of put the game away. They score a touchdown on that drive to really put the game away. They end up winning by 10 and they win by 3. But Bama was definitely the better team. They made Missouri play a style of football that they do not want to play. They do not want to be a drop back passing game, throw the ball vertically with Bo Pribula. He's not that kind of player. We saw it at Penn State last year. It was a fun, nice rushing quarterback, but like your ground and pound is your bread and butter is Mud Hardy, and then off of that you can mix in some whatever play action stuff. But Bama really impressive. They're now 5-1. They knocked off Vanderbilt last week, who was undefeated. They knocked off Missouri now this week, who's undefeated. Bama's 5-1, and they obviously they beat Georgia as well, who's undefeated. So they've beaten now 3 straight undefeated teams. Bama's resume is looking as good as anyone's. I would not want to play Alabama down the stretch at all. I think they're trying to find themselves now. And they play Tennessee this week on Saturday night, 5-1 versus 5-1, 6 versus 11. We know Bama and Tennessee. There's no love lost there, but I think Bama's trending upwards. They're passing the eye test each week.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, if you just kind of break it down simply, Bama ran, I think, 74 offensive plays in this game. So to me, they probably should have had 35 plus points. You know, they kind of, like you said, left a couple out there, a couple fourth downs, a couple spots where the missed field goal, whatever. But yeah, Bama, Tennessee should be a lot of fun. Third Saturday in October, obviously, is always electric. It's in Alabama, I believe. In Tuscaloosa. Yep. Yeah, so they get to be back home, and it's gonna be rocking. I mean, you know, this Alabama team where if they had beaten Florida State, which they should have, you know, they just kind of came out flat for whatever reason. We'd be talking, this is the best team in the country. It's like them, Ohio State. I mean, like, I'm gonna give a little love to Texas Tech because they're gonna go undefeated.
They look really good.
You know, they look really good. That looks like, you know, when people talk about, they've played nobody, it's like, well, they're winning by 25 plus every game. Yeah. So, you know, they're doing what they're supposed to do when you play nobody.
They're passing the eye test, George. They're not like
Texas Tech has dudes. They have dudes.
This is not going to be.
They've got dudes. So this is, but yeah, I kind of strayed away there. But you know, credit to Alabama. It's a good win for them. And you know, we got SEC as we get down the stretch of the SEC. Every week is just like 4 good matchups, no matter what. It's so fun. So
yeah. By the way, I want to kind of piggyback off your point about Texas Tech. People are gonna look up at the record and they're gonna be like, oh, Texas Tech. It's like, who they playing? That's a real team. Like, the record is not gonna be. That's not a fool's gold record, because the Big 12 is maybe not as good. But that's like, they have dudes. They're winning. They're beating everybody by 3 scores. This is not like one of those.
It's hard to win in college football. I don't care. If you're in a Power 5 conference, Power 4, it's hard to win.
Teams out, George. This is not like remember TCU a few years ago. They were undefeated, but they were kind of like winning every game by 3 points.
They weren't even undefeated. I think they like lost the conference championship.
Yeah, they lost, but they were 12-0 heading into that conference.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right, but they did lose to Kansas State. You're right, in that conference championship game. But like, this is not a tricky. Like, they're going to end up being 10-0. I think Texas Tech. They faced a couple games on the stretch where it's pretty difficult, but like. They're a legitimate squad. They went out on the road at Utah. Who wins in Salt Lake these days? They dominated that game. So Texas they have real athletes. It's not like a Big 12. You know, no, they have legit athletes.
They spent the money. They got the guys
They ponied up for sure. So maybe we'll hit on some NFL now as we
can move to NFL. I mean, we could talk about Red River. It wasn't much.
Red River wasn't much. I mean, it wasn't. It was just like,
to me, with a non-healthy material, you know. And I saw Sark say it after the game. He's like, I didn't want to come up here answering questions about their quarterback, what could have been. You know, you kind of still are, because he clearly wasn't 100%. You know, he didn't look great. I will say credit to him. He didn't make decision-wise. That's not part of your hand. The decision-making was not there.
He was throwing in a triple, for sure.
But just a quick little shout-out to Texas, because they needed that one in the worst of ways, and they got it. So
now they're back on track.
Their season remains alive. We'll see. It's SEC. 100%. It's never easy, but their season remains alive.
They're right now. They are in the playoff picture again. If they lost that game and be 3-3, their season's over. Now they're back in the mix. Obviously, they only have that one conference loss to Florida. The other conference loss. The other one is to Ohio State, which is not a conference loss. So they're still alive. They have to go at Georgia later in the year, but other than that, they'll be favored along the way most of the other games. So and Arch had his best game for sure. He converted a lot of third downs. He looked really good in that second half, specifically in that second half. First half was whatever, but he literally had his best half of football this entire year in that second half against Oklahoma. So credit to him for sure. And then again, we know who the top teams in college football are. Obviously, you got Indiana, Miami. We shout out them as well. They still look really good. Ohio State, Texas Tech, Bama. You can throw all those teams in the ring. But as far as the NFL goes, George, we saw again Eagles struggling against the Giants on Thursday Night Football. Short week. You feel like, okay, this is a put away. The Eagles blow that game against Denver. They'll get right back on track. They looked even worse against the Giants on Thursday night. This was really bad. I mean, this was never even a game, really. They got outplayed thoroughly by 2 rookies, Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo, who we like, but I mean, come on, this is the Super Bowl champions here, and they got thoroughly dominated on the line of scrimmages by the Giants, George.
Yeah,
I mean,
I just want to read you their drive chart in the second half.
Please,
It goes punt, 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 interception, fumble. There was no moving of the ball. No drive lasted more than 7 plays. The fumble was it was a good drive, and they gave it away. I think they were in the red zone there.
Yeah, the Hurts pick, I believe, was also he was drifting away and then threw it.
And to me, it's kind of more the same as last week, where they kind of got away from the run, where they were in a game. It was 20-17. Giants, credit to the Giants. Obviously, we're talking about the Eagles. They're kind of the story here, but the Giants, this was a coming out party for Dart and Scattaboo. Scattaboo probably his stats don't really represent what he did. They took their foot off the gas a little bit at the end of the game there.
He was really good.
And they gave some carries around, but just to me, the Eagles it feels very clunky. You watch that offense, and we kind of talked about it. It's kind of a boring offense, but the knock was that it was boring, but it was productive. And now it's not even productive, really.
No.
They're Saquon, again, only 12 carries. I think he had 9 last week. 21 carries in 2 weeks for Saquon. That's kind of where the story
ends. That shows they've been on the field enough.
That's the whole thing. Yeah. And, A.J. Brown kind of got involved, 6 for 80. And obviously the big receiving target was Dallas Goedert. But, just to me, the Philly feels very one-dimensional. And when the O-line is not playing at an elite level and they face a great front seven like they did against Denver and like they did against New York here, which they've now lost to twice, it shows that Hurts, kind of off schedule. It's a little bit sus. It's a little bit like, I don't love it. And usually that's kind of been a place where he's been good. We can kind of roll out and create plays.
Yeah.
But this year he's been very shaky. To me, and I'll make a point here. You made this point to me. I think it was like week 2. We were talking about actually Jaden Daniels, where it was when Jaden goes over the middle, it's going to Zach Ertz. And I think he's gotten a little bit away from that, and I think that, it's just kind of the offensive design. But with the Eagles, if Jalen Hurts throws over the middle, it's going to Dallas Goedert.
Every time.
AJ Brown's a guy who's going to work outside the numbers. He's a guy who you want in the one-on-one ball. Devontae Smith is a great route runner and gets open over the middle, but he's a small guy where these linebackers and safeties are going to light him up. So if it's going over the middle, it's going to Goddard. And so as long as you can kind of force Devontae and AJ Brown to the boundary and kind of
vertically,
you're getting help with the sideline, then you kind of just have to take away Dallas Goedert. And even when you don't take him away, you got 110 yards and a touchdown. You can only hold him to 17 points because for some reason they listen to the media and won't give the ball to Saquon 25 times a game. They did it last year, and they won a Super Bowl. They won 20 games in a row. And here we are, and they stopped giving it to Saquon because they want to satisfy their receiver or whatever the reason may be, and they've lost 2 straight. And it's I'd love to hear your take on this game, but to me, something's got to change in Philly. It's always drama with the Philly media and stuff. I'm not going to act like the players have it easy with the way that they're being talked to, but
of course,
they just look backwards right now.
George, you literally said it. Second half, they go 3 and out, punt, 4 plays, punt, 3 and out, punt, 4 plays, ending an interception. It was just a bad throw by Jalen Hurts, as simple as that, on the boundary. Then, at this point, the last drive is a fumble. It's a 7-play drive, but the fumble, who cares? They were down 34-17. So they finally sustained a drive, but it doesn't even matter.
It doesn't even matter. Yeah.
You're down 3 scores. So the fumble at the end of the game was honestly academic. It didn't even matter. It was a nice punch out by the Giants player. But that would have done anything. Even if that drive resulted in points, it would have done nothing. They would have still lost the game by double digits. They can't sustain drives right now, George. This offense looks completely clunky. It's completely out of whack. They're a team that thrives on time of possession, keeping the ball away, running the ball, line of scrimmage. There's none of that these last 2 weeks. It has looked like they've gotten away from what they are. This is not the Eagles that we've seen in the last few years. So I don't know what the heck's the problem is. They are forcing Jalen Hurts to make. He threw 33 times, dropped back more than that as well. This is not a team that you want to do that against. The Giants' front 4 is real. You mentioned in the over/under preview episode we had in the season, previewing the NFC.
They got dudes.
The Giants have dudes up front. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns having a heck of a year. Obviously, we know Abdul Carter. They drafted him high, of course. So they have
all kinds of guys.
Yeah, for sure. They have all kinds of guys. So this is not a team that you want to do that against and let their pass rushers pin their ears back against, because Hurts is not going to have. He's not going to be able to do what he did against the Cowboys in week 1, where you can kind of have all day back there. You can drop back and pass all the time you want because the Cowboys can't get after the quarterback. The Giants can get after the quarterback. So 33 pass attempts, too many. That needs to be in the low 20s. 17-22. That's more of a Jalen Hurts stat line. This is not a Jalen Hurts stat line that will ever. Again, took 3 sacks as well. So he dropped back 36 times. That's just too many times. Barkley, 12 carries, 58 yards. He averaged 5 yards a carry. They just didn't do it enough. They weren't on the field enough. And that goes to, maybe them trying to appease other guys in their team. I don't know what it is really, but they have a mini bye to get this thing right, because this is vibes in Philly. The vibes in Philly right now are so bad. I know they're 4-2, and it's like, oh, the sky's falling. It's like the reason why is because the vibes aren't good. They're not winning the way they're supposed to be winning. They're not playing the way they're supposed to be playing. So it's a little bit like that. Remember that team after the Super Bowl? They were 10-1. They were winning a lot of close games, but the vibes weren't really that good.
Yeah, you just felt like it was might be coming. Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously the collapse happened late in the season. They lost like 5 of 6. They end the season. They don't even win the division. They end up in the wild card, and they get bounced by Tampa Bay, who was 9-8. So if you're Philly, you don't want to mess around here. This division is kind of wide open all of a sudden. Washington's 3-3. We'll get to them in a minute. Dallas is 2-3-1. The Giants are 2-4. And you're 4-2, but you're only 2 games ahead of the last place Giants, who just whooped you. So the Eagles are not, the runaway favorites in this division. It's kind of a wide open division right now, and you're kind of playing with your food a little bit here, losing to the Giants and the Broncos, who you were both big favorites against. So I don't know that the Eagles are. It's concerning. I honestly think it's concerning, George.
Yeah, it just feels like every time Jalen Hurts drops back, you're holding your breath, and not because it's going to be a pick, but because like something, like every throw he makes, it's like we're going to hear about it tomorrow or something like that, right? Yeah. And I think AJ Brown's incredibly talented. I think Devontae Smith was a Heisman winner, obviously, and there's a million ways to get these guys involved. But I think the fact of the matter is you're a running football team. You have Saquon Barkley. You have those guys up front on that O-line. You have Jalen Hurts, obviously the tush push we talk about. And so it's like you want AJ Brown, Devontae Smith to supplement your run game. You want it to open up because you established the run. And they ran the ball well, I think, in the first half it was, and I'm sure Saquon had like 1 carry in the second half. But it feels like if you're down by 3, you don't have to force a pass.
You don't have to abandon it.
You have to abandon it. You can, and they did it well against us in the NFC Championship. It was like relatively close game for a while, and they just kept giving it to Saquon. They just kept giving it to Saquon because they knew they had that advantage up front, and they do in every game they play. Obviously, the Giants up front are very talented. The advantage might not be as clear, but to me, you still have that advantage. And when you want Jalen Hurts to like you said, 33 pass attempts, it's just too many pass attempts. And when you're getting outplayed by Jackson Dart in a spot where the Giants have nobody catching the ball. I mean, it's Wan'Dale Robinson. I thought Lil Jordan Humphrey made a couple of really nice plays. He's huge. Bad name, Lil Jordan. He's like 7.
He's not little at all.
But yeah, and then Scatterby was kind of just like running down your throat it felt like every time it was like 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8, whatever it was, they got a good first down. Scatterby for 6+. And it was easy. He had 3 touchdowns, could have had a 4th one, but they took his foot off the gas. 98 yards, could have had 150 probably. So I mean, you got to give credit to the Giants here. This is a team where I hear some trade talks, the Chris Olave conversation, someone like that.
They need a receiver.
If they bring, obviously with Malik Neighbors out, they need a receiver. But they just kind of went out and took this game from Philly, and Philly never had a chance. I understand they were down a lot. That kind of attributes to why they passed the ball so much. But I mean, why are you down? You got to get these stops. And right now, Philly looks out of sorts. I mean, obviously they still lead in the division. So it's a lot of season to be played. And at this point last year, they were kind of shakies too. Yeah. So you can kind of assume they're going to figure it out, but this feels a touch deeper than just the offense needs a little
work. The vibes are worse this year than they were last year, for sure. Definitely. And by the way, we didn't touch on the defense. They did make Jackson Dart look really good, really comfortable with no weapons as far as pass catchers go. And the Giants, they might not be buyers of the deadline, but we need to bring in a receiver just because Jackson Dart needs that guy as far as like a, safety blanket receiver. Like if you don't have league members for your entire first year as a rookie, you might see some up and down games. So for sure, they might go out and get a guy like Olave or Jacoby Myers, someone like that. Sure. To go to the Chiefs now though. The Chiefs look back. Sure. The Chiefs they're getting receivers back now. They're 3-3 now. I know but they dominated the Lions from the get-go that game. George. Yeah. They really looked good. The Chiefs look like they're humming again. The offense is scoring 30 again, George. This is looking like the Chiefs of old. I don't know.
We talked about it. We talked about it a little bit last week where it's like, the Chiefs offense kind of looked great. The Chiefs offense was fine. Mahomes looked great. He had I think the 1 pick against the Jags where Devin Lloyd made a great play. Yeah. But this is a spot where the offense looked fine. The defense just kind of had to put it together. Yeah. And then we saw the Lions, who everyone kind of agreed the Lions were like playing some of the best football around the entire league coming into this game. And they just never even were in this game. It felt like immediately they held them to that field goal. They got the touchdown, and then the Lions took the lead. And then from there it was downs, punt, got the touchdown to begin the fourth quarter, then punt, downs. They only had the ball, I think, 4 more times after that. Yeah. So, the Chiefs look back, like you said, I hate saying it because, everybody hates the Chiefs, but Patrick Mahomes, I mean, you can't say enough good stuff about Patrick Mahomes. This guy is just all over the place. They didn't really need to run the ball. Mahomes took it 10 times himself, but I mean, it just felt like Mahomes to whoever he wanted. Kelsey had a good game. Juju had a good game. Hollywood 45 yards. So he just spread the ball around, and you watch the Chiefs and it's just like, damn, it's just like, they're back. And Spags is dialing them up still.
And by the way, they made Detroit a drop back passing game, which we know how good the Lions are when they're ahead. It's like they're like a freight train. That's
like Jameer and David Montgomery.
Once they get ahead and they establish the run, then they can set up everything. And Goff looks incredible off the play action, off the deep shot. They have a bunch of explosive stuff that they can do once they're beating you. But when the Chiefs got out to a lead in the second half, they kind of forced the Lions to not abandon who they really are, which is they're going to hand the ball off to Gibbs and Montgomery the entire game and kind of get play action. We saw what they did to the Ravens defense. They ran all over him, and then Goff obviously was able to hit them with the over-the-top stuff. The Steve Spagnuolo and the Chiefs forced Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions into it being a drop-back passing team, and that's not really what their strong suit is. I mean, obviously we know they're replacing some guys in the offensive line, including Frank Ragnow. So in pass protection, they may not be the best or as good as they were last year, but really the Lions are a team they're built through their two-headed running back tandem in Montgomery and Gibbs. And once the Chiefs were able to kind of take that away a little bit, they forced Jared Goff into a game where he doesn't really play. Maybe he doesn't play his sharpest football. And the Chiefs the defensively, they really stepped up this week after a rough game against the Jags. Defensively, they were able to kind of let them get back in that game. But holding the Lions at 17 points, it feels feels like a big win. I mean, it feels like a big win. Again, Montgomery only gets 4 carries. Gibbs gets 17 carries for only 65 yards. So he only averaged 3.5 yards a carry. So they were able to kind of shut that down. And then once you shut that down, the explosives don't come in the pass game for the Lions. I mean, only 6. I mean, again, they weren't really able to have no 70-yard catcher. I mean, St. Brown only had 45 yards. Laporta had 55 yards and that unbelievable touchdown in the back of the end zone. James Williams had 66 yards. So no one really got off on the Chiefs. So give credit to Spags. I think this was more good Chiefs. It was almost like a Lions loss that they kind of needed because they were playing such good football. They were smoking teams. Yeah. They were beating the brace off of the Bengals, the Browns, the Ravens. So they were feasting off these
kind of an easy.
Yeah, they had an easy run on it for sure. Now they get Tampa Bay next week. That'll be really interesting as well. But
that is a big one.
Yeah, the Chiefs get off the mat. They get to 3-3. They look really dangerous again. And we can kind of segue right into these Monday night games here, by the way, George, because Buffalo, we can hit on Buffalo first because Buffalo is the only other team in the AFC besides the Chiefs that everyone really looks at as like, oh, yeah, they're a Super Bowl contender right now. Because Baltimore, we know Baltimore's going through some issues. But in the AFC as a whole, I mean, who do we look at as the Super Bowl contenders? It's Buffalo, it's Kansas City. I mean, the Colts are having a nice 100%. I'm not going to, credit to the Colts for having a nice start of the season, 5-1. The Steelers are 4-1. The Chargers are 4-2, but they have so many injuries. I can't call them a Super Bowl contender.
It just feels like the Chiefs again, yeah.
Yeah, Denver's 4-2, but we saw how they looked against the Jets. I mean, let's be real. It's the Bills and the Chiefs as the two teams that everyone's looking at. But the Bills, George, recently the Bills have dropped 2 in a row. They've back-to-back primetime losses now to New England on Sunday night and then to Atlanta on Monday night. They look really lost offensively the last 2 weeks, George. I figured that the Patriots game was just a lot of penalties that added up. But the Falcons, there's really no excuse to only put up 14 points against the Falcons defense on the road. I didn't see, and that was one of the worst games that Josh Allen's played in a long, long time. Obviously, he looked unrecognizable in that game. Is it just a bad 2 week stretch for the Bills, or is this kind of like maybe a little bit more concerning?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that it's a bad 2 week stretch for the Bills, but I think that defense absolutely has some question marks.
Yeah,
obviously Bijan is incredibly talented, but we saw him just kind of have his way. He did whatever he wanted pretty much all night. And then Josh Allen, here's an interesting stat. He had 6 pass catchers with a 10 or longer, with a completion of 10 yards or longer. So he was taking the top off the defense a lot. Yeah. But to me, it just kind of felt like a spot where the Falcons, kind of similar to what the Chiefs were doing against the Lions, were kind of sitting back and they were just kind of tackling when they needed to. And they were making plays when they needed to, and they just kind of let their front 4 and their front 7 kind of get pressure when necessary. Obviously, Josh Allen is gonna use his legs a ton. He had 42 rushing yards, but they limited him enough. He wasn't exactly like throwing and running and gunning all around the field. But yeah, I think the stat was it was an 11.8 yards. His average depth of target for Josh Allen was 11.8 yards. I think that was his longest of his career, I believe. And to me, it just kind of feels like Josh Allen, we talked about it so much in the first 4 weeks where it's like, some of the reckless play is kind of getting out of him.
Yeah.
And to me, it feels like when he gets into that fight or flight mode and he starts losing a football game, he feels like he needs to just air it out. And, when we saw Josh Palmer, 2 catches, 60 yards.
Yeah.
Terrell Shavers, 3 catches, 27 yards. All these long completions when it's like, hey, sometimes the best thing is the underneath route. Sometimes, and obviously, I can't think of his name. Kincaid is not healthy right now.
He's out.
It's a big loss. Obviously, the tight end over the middle, that safety blanket. But just kind of hitting your check down, taking your easy 4 to 5 yards as opposed to an incompletion is how you keep a drive going. And then those interceptions, obviously, are how you end the drive. So I mean, to me, like you said, Josh Allen just feels a little bit uncomfortable. I think that defense has a lot of question marks. And then here's another interesting one that I saw. It was on I think Cowherd was talking about it.
Yeah.
He said no coach and quarterback duo has ever won a Super Bowl after their first 5 years together, I believe was what the quote was. And so here we are in year 8 with McDermott and Allen. It's also year 8 of Lamar and Harbaugh in that same conversation.
Okay.
And so I'm not saying that Sean McDermott should be fired. That's not what I'm making this point to say. But it just feels like the Bills have been the same team every single year, and it's just Josh Allen. And they had Diggs, and Diggs was a bit of a diva, and they got rid of him whatever it was. He wanted his way out of there. They got rid of him when they respected his wishes. But, this is a game where obviously James Cook, he got his 17 carries, 87 yards, but I think he could have done even more. I think he could have had even more, like take a little pressure off Josh Allen. This is awesome. This is a solid Atlanta secondary. These are guys who can, AJ Terrell, I think was his first game back. Jesse Bates is obviously great safety. So they got these guys, and like we talked about, the Buffalo receiving room, it's Josh Palmer, it's Elijah Moore, it's Keon Coleman. There's not really that guy, that threat, that scary threat, especially with Kincaid out. You can't run those kind of dual tight end sets. So to me, it just feels like the Bills are on both sides of the ball, I'd say, a player or two short of being what they want to be. And when Josh Allen has this game where he throws 2 interceptions and doesn't really put on the Superman cape that he needs to put on, this is unfortunately kind of what the Bills are. They're all or nothing with Josh, and usually Josh is great. He's the MVP last year for a reason, and he's usually perfect. He's usually great. He was for the first 4 weeks, but he's facing some defenses here. The Patriots have had a pulse, the Falcons have a pulse, and you're definitely seeing them kind of sober up, become a human. So
by the way,
it's a lot.
Yeah, the Falcons play much better at home, so no doubt about that. But the Bills, I mean, you mentioned once Josh Allen has these multi-turnover games, it kind of reverts back to a little bit of the reckless nature. And certainly Monday night, you could see that for sure. But I figure, I mean, maybe they're a player or two short on both sides of the ball. But honestly, George, in this AFC, it feels like they shouldn't be. It feels like it feels like they shouldn't have to need anything really in this AFC with how down it is this year, with Houston having offensive problems. Baltimore literally is 1-5. Cincinnati's without their quarterback. Kansas City
500. They're coming back.
Yeah, 100%. Say what you want. Kansas City is 500. They're 3-3 right now. I mean, the Steelers are 4-1. I mean, come on. The Colts are 5-1. I mean, come on. So the Bills should be much better than all these other teams. The Chargers are dealing with all kinds of offensive line injuries and running back injuries. So
yeah,
Buffalo
they're dropping games with the Falcons. It doesn't.
Yeah, like they're playing with their food a little bit here. I mean, they're really like they should be the number 1 seed in the AFC with flying colors, and they're really kind of like goofing around back to back against teams that are all right. I mean, Drake May, second-year quarterback, Michael Penix, second-year quarterback. They're fine teams. New England and Atlanta, both of them.
Games you want to win, though.
Those are games you're supposed to win if you're Buffalo. If you're the best team in the AFC, which we believe they are because of the circumstances, then you should not be dropping these games. I think it's a bad 2-week stretch. I don't think it's the ultimate. I don't think this is really how bad they are. I do think that. I think again, we've mentioned they've had safety issues in secondary. Teams have been able to run on Buffalo all year long. It happened week 1 against Baltimore. They kind of got lucky to win that game because they gave up like 200 yards on the ground, and they won the game, but it was
40-41 or whatever.
Yeah, Henry fumbles, and they kind of get let back in the game. But the Dolphins ran on Buffalo pretty well. Teams have been able to run on Buffalo for sure. And Atlanta, obviously, you have Bijan Robinson, who's unbelievable. But it's been an issue for the Bills all season long, getting ran on. So they have to figure out. I think there may be a deadline move, and they are without a couple defensive pieces. I mean, Daquan Jones, their best run defensive tackle, gets injured in warmups against Atlanta. It looked the part. Obviously, it looked like he was out. He was not out there. So they're missing. They're devoid of some starters that are unbelievably difference-making starters for sure. But offensively, they got to get that fixed because I'm more worried about the defense. At least has excuses because there's injuries on that side of the ball. Offensively, I mean, they are without Kincaid, of course. That's a big one too.
But still, I mean,
they should not be scoring 14 points at Atlanta.
It feels like to me that they kind of just lack an identity on offense, right? And they kind of saw the Falcons, who they know their identity. They're going to run out of the pistol, that even set. They're going to make you tackle Bijan Robinson, which is one of the hardest things to do.
They're going to throw.
And, they're going to throw, and exactly like we're talking about. They didn't even have Darnell Mooney. They only had 4 pass catchers, and one of them was Tyler Algiers with 1 catch. Crazy. So we talk about the Bills had 6 guys with a 10-yard or longer completion. It's like Josh Allen wants everyone to eat, but you make sure you score. Like, did they? I don't think they scored in the second half. I think they were held to 14 from halftime until the end of the game. Yeah, that's right. So, or they had 1 touchdown.
No. It was 21-7 at halftime, but then they scored one.
Yeah, they had 1 more. But it felt like they had. I mean, if you look at the drive chart, they had like 12 drives to only score 14 points. It just can't happen. And so to me, it's like you're a couple guys short on offense. Defense, they're a little bit hurt, but even when they're fully healthy, they've kind of notoriously come up short against these big games. Yeah. So to me, it's like you need another receiver, or you need your tight end back. You need Kincaid back, but you need to be more than Josh Allen. And we've kind of seen when James Cook goes, the team goes. And I'm not saying James Cook is the key, but I mean, that short game is big. When Josh Allen is just throwing it deep every time and hoping for 50-50 balls with Josh Palmer, and then Khalil Shakir is like 5'8". He's not a guy who's going to make a ton of downfield catches. You need that consistent ground game. And they kind of got to it second half, but you kind of saw that pressure of being behind, and they threw it a little more than they needed to because they were behind. So to me, it's similar to the Eagles, where they're dropping games they don't need to be dropping. They're straying away from the run game because they want to have, maybe, is it more fun? Is it they just want to take the keys off of the offense? I don't know. But yeah, I'm not worried about the Bills. I'm not worried about the Eagles long term. But to me, it's like this is a spot in the season, week 7, where you need to know what you are. Like I said, the Falcons know what they are. The Falcons know exactly what they are. The Penix is there for a reason. They know what they are. The Bills, it's like you're Josh Allen or you're nothing. Like you need a little bit in between. So
I was gonna say the Bills need to get back to what their identity is, which is Josh Allen and James Cook. And then obviously when you get Kincaid back, that's a nice trick. But yeah, when the Bills are their scariest, I've always said it. It's when Josh Allen and James Cook are running the ball all over you, and it's like, how do you stop this team? Because then they can build off of that other. Like it's Josh Allen, James Cook as a duo in that backfield, which is what scares you so much with the +1 stuff like that. So the Bills I think they're gonna be fine. Maybe they make a deadline move and they end up figuring it out. I think it's a good.
Olave is not off the table for them too.
100%. I think it's a bad 2-week stretch, but I think they're going to be fine moving forward. For this last game we're going to get into is your commies, the Commanders and Bears. We got to talk about it. It's the revenge spot for the Bears, obviously. Monday Night Football doubleheader. Commanders, Bears. George, I'll let you go and take this one. I mean, what happened to the Commanders? The turnovers?
It's a pretty straight up and down game, right? I mean, it's 3 turnovers to none, and it's a spot where, I mean, it's a spot. Okay, I will start with this. That it's a revenge spot. A lot of talking, but from both sides this week. The Hail Mary, obviously, last year was unbelievable. It was insane. Kind of turned both of these teams' seasons around. Obviously, the Bears kind of struggled after that. The Commanders did great. But yeah, no, that was from last year. That game is no relevance on this year now. To me, it was just as a Commanders fan, obviously, that's the kind of the perspective I'm going to have. It was just so unbelievably unfortunate. We saw obviously we gave the ball away 3 times, not the biggest of which was 3 minutes left with the lead in the fourth quarter. And, you can make excuses with the rain and with the whatever for as many hours as you want. But the fact of the matter is you can't fumble the ball twice and throw that pick. The pick was unfortunate because I think he had Debo there. If he throws it
a little late,
half second earlier, if he hasn't. But, I mean, to me, I thought the Commanders – I mean, it's tough because they almost did win the game, but to me, they didn't play nearly well enough to win this football game.
No, they really
I thought that the referees were on our side. I'm not going to deny that at all. I thought there was a couple absurd calls against the Bears.
Rome Odunze one. That was
Odunze. I was don't get me wrong. I was super happy to see it, but I thought it was just a wild call to call it that close. And then, I thought the Bears ran the ball great. DeAndre Swift, especially kind of in that fourth quarter when they needed him most, he was pounding that rock, getting 6, 7, 8 yards every time they needed him to.
He averaged 7.7 a carry, George. He averaged 7.
7. Jeez. I mean, you just can't have that. And it's against a Commanders defense that it's looking okay against the run. I thought Kinlaw and Payne would do a little better. They kind of ran to the edges there, took advantage of our lack of run defense on the outside, which, is something that needs to be addressed. But to me, I thought Jaden played well enough to win this game. Outside of the fumble, obviously, I thought up until that fumble, he was incredible. I thought that he pretty much it wasn't really a comeback because it was pretty close, but he was just the Luke McCaffrey touchdown was great. Chris Moore made an unbelievable catch. And we just never really got anything going long-term on the ground. Obviously, Jaden's couple scrambles were great.
Yeah,
and Bill Krusky-Merritt was fine. 17 for 61 is serviceable. The fumble obviously kills you.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, it's a pretty simple one where you can't turn the ball over 3 times. And, credit to us for being in the game late and almost winning. Obviously you're holding your breath for a blocked kick or something at the end. Who knows? But, when you turn the ball over 3 times, you don't force any turnovers. You only score 24. Against a Ben Johnson offense, that's just not going to be enough usually. And I thought – and the tough part is, and Bears fans don't want to hear this, I didn't think Caleb played very well. I thought Caleb was –
he missed some throws.
He missed some throws. Obviously, the Odunze touchdown being taken off the board is huge. He didn't miss them. He kind of threw in the double coverage ones that could have arguably been picked. But I thought that he was fine. It was more so just the Bears were kind of situationally better than us.
Yeah.
I mean, you forced the turnovers on defense. You run the ball great on offense. It was really everyone kind of doing what they needed to do. And then when Caleb was asked to make the extra play, he didn't really do it, but he didn't need to overall because we just kept giving him the ball. So it's tough to go over this one and not be emotional about it because, obviously I love my team, but it's a spot where the Commanders, similar to the Bills, I think they need to get better on defense. I think that Lattimore played great in this game. Amos played great in this game. Mike Sainristil has been very questionable the last couple of weeks, and I love Mike Sainristil, but he's a guy that obviously has to play a little better. I thought the tackling was just terrible. I mean, Quan Martin on the outside, that's a tough play because he kind of gets stuck up with Lattimore, but you can't let him just take it to the house there. That's just absurd. All the momentum. Angles were bad. And, like I said, you can make excuses for the weather and you can make excuses for X, Y, and Z Monday night, whatever you want it to be. But when you turn it over 3 times, you don't force one, and you fumble with 3 minutes in the fourth.
That's the game. Yeah.
That's the game right there. So I think that it's a team where the Commanders, and people have asked me, are they worse than last year? And it's like, well, I wouldn't say that. I'd say that similar to the Eagles. Situationally, maybe they're worse, but I think the roster is better. I think I like Debo.
Totally
I love Jalen Lane. Luke McCaffrey has been very good kickoff and on the actual field. So I think that once we get healthy, once we maybe make a move or two on the defensive line, defensive end help, I think would be nice. Von Miller, I love, but he's just a bit old. Bobby Wagner, I love. He's just a bit old. So you gotta tackle a little better, but I mean, it's a game where you're upset to lose, but if you turn the ball over 3 times and you lose by 1, it's like, all right, we're just 1 turnover away. So
of course,
I'd like to hear your non-biased take on this.
Well, first of all, I do think that Washington did not deserve to win that game the other night. I mean, 3 turnovers to 0, you should lose that game. I think they got fortunate. One of them, they actually did block the field goal of Moody. I thought Chicago should have more points than they did, and they blocked the field goal.
Yeah.
And at the end, obviously, Moody does hit that chip shot. But I mean, if you're Washington, half glass full, or glass half full, I should say, you lost by 1 and you didn't have Terry McLaurin. I mean, your top targets here were Chris Moore had 3 for 46, Ertz had 6 for 43, Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey each had 1 catch. But for 37,
you didn't really have, and Debo was like 85% with the ankle. So.
Yeah, exactly. He was also banged up as well. So you had that as well. I thought Jaden Daniels was really, really good. I think he had some scrambles. I was like, wow, Jaden Daniels is just making nothing and making something out of nothing.
He's so good.
He gets like 8 yards on a scramble. I mean, that play should have gone nowhere. So he gets like 8 yards on. So he had 10 carries for 52 yards. A lot of off out of structure stuff for sure.
Not a lot of design runs, which we kind of saw a lot last year. It's a lot more. They wanted to throw it, and he
scramble drill. Yeah, we see with Baker Mayfield, the scramble drill that kind of saves drive sometimes.
Absolutely,
it kind of bails you out. So yeah, like the offense isn't going. Here's a Jaden Daniels 8-yard scramble that can kind of just get you. So yeah, he kind of made the most out of an offense that I think was just not really there this game. I mean, and again, without McLaurin, that's totally fair. It's expected, but I think the Bears just played very sound fundamental defense. I think the Bears deserve to win this game. Yeah. Again, Caleb only 17 for 29. He missed a couple throws out there, but overall did what he was asked to do, which is convert a couple third downs. Yeah, exactly. Again, it was more Swift 14 for 108. Swift ran all over them. The Bears O-line looks really good. It looks improved. I mean, it really does.
It's the best they've looked all year. I mean, they dominated us up front.
It's back-to-back games now against the Bears had a bye, but it's back-to-back games against the Raiders now and against the Commanders where they were down late and they leaned on the run game and they were running right behind Braxton Jones and those guys or Darnell Wright. Excuse me, Darnell Wright. They run right behind Darnell Wright on that right side of the offensive line for Chicago, and it was to success. I mean, a couple back-to-back runs with huge success late in that game in bad conditions, as you said. So you have to run the ball because no one wants to be throwing in these wet conditions. But Swift, heck of a job by them. I think Chicago again. They had a Dunze touchdown that got called back. I think that he probably wants that one back.
That should have been a touchdown. I mean, I haven't looked back, but lined up like a little bit deep. It's just it's a weird call.
Luther Burden, kind of a coming out party, 4 for 51. DJ Moore was battling some stuff on the sideline. But I like Chicago team. Yeah, I like the Chicago team. I like the makeup of it. The defense is playing a little bit better. Obviously, they come up with they're opportunistic this year. Obviously, Nahshon Wright comes up with a big turnover late. It was like the same game as last year a little bit as far as like it's close late. It's going to come out of 1 or 2 plays.
Yeah, I thought a Hail Mary might be in our future.
I was going to say, I was getting flashbacks. I said, okay, if Chicago lines up for a field goal here, is there a chance that Washington gets the ball back and gets another Hail Mary in their tricks? But they played the clock really, really well to the point where they were playing for a field goal, but I was like, hey, Jake Moody's not like the most reliable guy. You might want to get a little closer.
Yeah, the whole San Francisco ordeal.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they ended up getting the job done. I think you got to credit the Bears for sure. But if you're the Commanders, tough home loss, but they got to get back on this. They're gonna be. I think they're gonna be fine.
It's a spot where we were 2-2 with Jaden coming back. And we had on the road against LA and at home against Chicago. Yeah. And I won't lie, I thought we were going to go 1-1. And I thought we might lose to the Chargers and beat the Bears. So fact of the matter is you kind of zoom out a little bit and we're 3-3, ton of football left. And it's unfortunate. But if you look at that Eagles game from Thursday where they got smoked by the Giants, it's a game where if we had won this game, we'd be in first place in the East.
Huge opportunity.
And they talked about it a lot over the last couple of days. This is a game that might come down to playoff seeding. This might be a tiebreaker game.
Oh, the division.
I mean, the Bears, who knows what they're going to finish with? Obviously, the NFC North is stacked again this year. And it's going to be an uphill battle pretty much every game in the NFC North. But, I mean, that's a huge win for them. I got to give credit to them. Obviously, I don't want to, but you got to give credit. And they dominated us up front really on both sides. We got pressure on Caleb, but it was more so when he was holding the ball for a long time. Right. So I think that the Bears, I'm not going to say they're back or anything crazy, but I think with that great, that's an elite receiving core. I'm not going to say it's not. Odunze, Moore, and Burden is an elite receiver.
Well, they have a good formula to win games, George.
They can win football games. And if Caleb, as long as he's not turning the ball over, which he didn't against us, they're going to be fine because I trust Ben Johnson to call the right plays. He's not a big turnover guy, though, George. He didn't turn the ball over. He knows what he's doing. It just, to me, is the Ben Johnson-Caleb Williams marriage, and it's going to develop, I think, over time. But I think that right now they look very solid, and if they can run the ball like this, they're going to be very dangerous. years.
Because that's what Ben Johnson wants to do. I mean, we saw in Detroit. What he wants to do is he wants to run the ball and then
he wants to set up his trick plays.
Of course, he wants to marry the pass game up with that. But right now they look really good. They look like they're humming, and they have New Orleans next week, and they could beat New Orleans to go to 5 or go to 4-2. And then they have Baltimore, who knows if Lamar's gonna be back by then. So the Bears, it's a tough division, no doubt, but they can win some games. They can get to 8 or 9 wins for sure. The Commies schedule to close it out here. After the Cowboys next week on the road in Dallas, they are a 1-point favorite. This is a tough stretch, George. They got to go at Kansas City. They got Seattle and then Detroit. Then you get the Dolphins. Okay, that's fine. Then you got to go play the Broncos. So
Dolphins in Madrid though. So it's like you get an easier game, but you got to go 15 hours away or whatever.
Yeah. So their only easy game is like a hour difference, and they don't even get a bye week after that. They do get a bye week after that. Okay. So yeah, but they get Chiefs, Seattle, Detroit before that. So George, I know they're 3-3 right now, but this is a sneaky must win against Dallas this week to go to 4-3. If you don't go to 4-3, you're in some trouble here.
It's gut check time. I'm not going to say it's not. Obviously, I think that. I mean, Dallas is a game where you feel like you're going to need 35. The way Dak is playing right now, and with CD possibly coming back, George Pickens is playing awesome.
You got to score 35.
You probably need 35 against Dallas, and I think that's very much possible. I think that. As a little bit of sour grapes here, but if we had played this Bears game in a dome, which we will be playing on Sunday, we'd probably win without those fumbles. But I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I think that it's gut check time for sure in DC. I love this roster. I think that as we get healthier with Cosme's coming back, Terry's coming back, we did just put Noah Brown on the IR long-term, which stings. But with the way Luke McCaffrey and some of those other backup receivers have played, I'm still pretty confident in this offense. But yeah, we're a team that has to run the ball well. And we didn't run it nearly well enough against the Bears in order to kind of set up some of that offense. Right. And then, it really just comes down to turnovers. If you turn over the ball 3 times to 0, you're not really winning any NFL games. I can't believe it was this close, really.
They could have won it.
More credit to the referees for keeping us in it. Sure. But yeah, I think, like you said, it's gut check time. It's a brutal schedule. That the NFC East schedules this year are just absurd.
It is.
But it's going to be good football to watch. I think we're on prime time like 6 weeks in a row. So I'll be stressing my heart out every single week. It's the worst for me, but it's going to be fun because I mean, Jaden's back. He looks healthy.
He looks good.
That he stays healthy. He looks good. And, a couple mistakes here and there, those are to be expected. And, I take a little blame myself. I was someone, and I still am supremely confident in my quarterback, but I was someone who crowned him pretty early. I said he was top 5 coming into this year. I'm not going to be like, oh, he's top 5, whatever. But he's a guy that talent-wise, when he's playing well and he's not turning the ball over, I mean, there's no one I'd rather have.
George, do you still think he's the best quarterback in the NFC?
In the NFC? I think you got to give it to Dak. I think that Dak, just based on what he's done, has been. I mean, Baker. I guess Baker. You're gonna say I was thinking NFC East. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I'm talking about the entire.
Yeah. Whole NFC. I'm saying no. I can't give him that crown right now. Just overall, Baker and Dak probably, and maybe even Darnold too.
Well, here's the thing.
You've got a lot of guys.
Yeah, but in our preview, it was between for us. It was between Stafford and Jaden as the 2 top in the NFC. It's like,
and those two. I mean,
of course, yeah. But right now with the emergence of Baker and the way Dak's playing, it's got to for sure. You could honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's season to season, obviously, and it's who you've played through 6 games or whatever. And so if you're looking big picture, I'm not taking 5. I'm not taking a lot of guys over Jaden Daniels.
No.
But I mean, right now you got to give Dak, Baker, Darnold. Got to give these guys a ton of credit. I mean,
those 4 or 5 guys are for sure.
Yeah, and so it's tough, but I mean, I think it's a long season for a reason. You got to kind of have to wear the storm, but. The Commanders fans are probably a little anxious right now, and rightfully so, because you kind of not needed this game. But if you're 4-2 going into that big stretch, you kind of feel a lot more comfortable. 3-3 is like, okay, we have to play some really good football.
Oh yeah. By the way, of those 5 quarterbacks we mentioned, we did not mention Jalen Hurts in there. We're not gonna get into it today, but we didn't mention his name in there. Where is his standing in the league? But I do.
I'm hearing guys call for Tanner McKee to be starting in Philadelphia.
No,
I'll send you the clip, and I obviously don't agree with it, but I mean the Jalen Hurts stuff. There's something has to happen in Philly. Obviously DC too, but something has to happen. Kind of all around the league.
Yeah, Jared Goff, same thing. There's a lot of NFC. It's like 6 or 7 guys who you can put you can kind of rotate those guys around for sure. But yeah, George, awesome episode today. Next week we'll be back with we'll know what the World Series is, but this time next week.
Yeah.
So
we'll see. Hopefully the Jays
get back in and make a nice series, but it very well could be Seattle and LA, which you did have in our postseason prediction episode.
Credit to me there.
Could be that. We'll see some more college football. I think it's a really good college football Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. I'll look at the
we'll go check into it.
Yeah, and for sure we'll see what happens in the NFL. Big game for Washington, obviously against Dallas. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, George, awesome episode here today.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
And we will see you next time.
Yes, sir.